The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Hey everybody, Keefer and Kurre back with you on this Tuesday morning as we are taping this program. Hopefully you'll be seeing it very soon because this is a very topical Keefer and Kurre Sports, our new theme here. And as we explained a couple of weeks ago when we started on this path, this is largely driven by me. I enjoyed talking about various subjects with Tony back and forth, and I know we got a lot of great feedback from all of you. But I do a lot of kind of packaged sports programs, don't get a chance to really get into the minutia and the issues a lot of times. So this gives me an outlet to do that. So I appreciate everybody indulging us. And today, to make the example of what I talked about last week, we're not necessarily just pinned down with sports. We can also go some different directions. And a direction, Tony, this week has emerged. First of all, please remind me what year this is.
This will be 2026, Skip.
Okay, I thought maybe I had fallen into some kind of time warp, and it was 1956, because in the last week, we have had several major eruptions where everybody's pointing the finger and calling the South racist again. I thought we had kind of made some progress since 1956, especially in the mid-60s, the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act, let me get that right, which basically initiated opportunities for African-American citizens to have districts drawn to give them more representation in Congress and in local elections. And all of that has gone merrily along. I don't think we're perfect yet, but I guess this is the best place to start, and I'll give you the angle of why it's related to sports in just a moment. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, what's your feelings? You've lived this same era that I have. I think this society has not only made progress, but it's almost completely eliminated the whole specter of and people you're always going to have pockets of people that have different ideas and really warped thoughts about other people. But I really believe we are past the period where you just look at a person, like Dr. King said in the March on Washington in 1963, people need to be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And I believe we have pretty much achieved that. What do you think?
I would agree. I would agree with you. I think it's fluid. I think it's something that's always changing. I think it is something that you can't just put in the back drawer and say we're finished here. It's almost like recovery for an addict. It's never ending. It's something you have to constantly work for and work towards, because you're constantly bringing in a younger group of people into schools. I am miffed and surprised by what I hear coming from my kids' mouths. My kids are not racist. They don't say racist things. They listen to their father. I've been on the radio, and I think anyone that listens to my radio shows in the past realizes that I've worked with Black people, Asian people, Chinese people, Mexican people. It doesn't bother me at all, and particularly I think in the world of sports, I know that's where you want to go today. That is the big great equalizer. It's the great equalizer. You go back to Jackie Robinson, you go back to these guys that didn't want blacks in their baseball team. Well, hit a home run for me, and we'll see if I want you on my baseball team. That goes by the weatherland. That's like it's not even part. You no longer look at skin color. When it's coming down to color in sports now, I think you bring up something interesting. I know you kind of want to get into the voting acts, and I think this is just very poignant, particularly since we've got today's voting day, and we're all getting into it, and it's just amazing to me. I'm for the most part, I think most of this country, at least for several decades, maybe into the last 50 years. No one really cared about the primaries, didn't really care about the Congress, didn't care about, who's going to be the judge in Shelby County, didn't really care about they talked about the president. It was the president. I would also say that most people that are going to go vote today probably are going to vote for one or two different people they really like. And then the rest of them, they have no clue.
They'll just guess, yeah.
Yeah,
or vote D or R.
Yeah, or they'll either vote along party lines, which we know where most of the state's going to go, or they recognize a name, or they're going purely incumbent. And just because they figure since someone's been there for 16 years, they must be good enough to be there for another 16.
Exactly.
Which is where I think a lot of us have gotten in a lot of trouble there. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it did. I want a related experience I had last Thursday night. I was honored to be invited by the chairman of our racing commission, Yancey Williams, to the A.G. Gaston Boys and Girls Club annual dinner, celebrating 60 years of that club being in existence in Birmingham. Started downtown by a very successful black businessman named A.G. Gadsden in 1966. This was their 60-year anniversary. And I went to that function, and I was not the least bit uncomfortable. I was probably only one of maybe 15 or 20 Caucasian people there. But it never even occurred to me that this is any place. I was celebrating the accomplishment of an extraordinary institution in this city that has taken in a lot of the children in bad circumstances over the years, dating back to when it was absolutely a tinderbox situation with racial relations and different things. And Gadsden started this remarkable club, and so many people came up and related how it changed their lives to be involved with these people, because successful citizens that volunteered their time showed them that to respect others and to work hard and to have an abundant amount of faith. The guest speaker was Jalen Hurts, who's got a pretty interesting story, of course. And he and Mayor Woodfin were on the stage having a dialogue for almost an hour. It was just a fantastic event. And as I've seen these things unfold in the last couple of days, after that experience where I left there really feeling, I don't know. I don't want to say enlightened, but I was really uplifted that, these institutions that I don't usually get to hear the inside stories. I've been aware of the Gaston Boys and Girls Club for a long time. If you live in Birmingham, you've also come across people that talk about that. And I happily wrote a check to continue to support their effort, because now they've expanded into like 7 different communities in Birmingham. They're not just downtown. They've got a brand new Hoover chapter. They've got them all the way out in Pelham and other places. I mean, this is a great organization. But I was so uplifted after attending that. So these headlines of the last couple of days, starting with Lane Kiffin, who today I'm going to do for the Starting Lineup, our television show. I've created a new batch of college sports awards, the Jabronis. And today, the Lifetime Jabroni Award will be going to Lane Kiffin. I'll give you a heads up, a little preview to Saturdays. He is going to win a Lifetime Jabroni Award for his behavior all through his career. This is the most ungrateful, disloyal, self-centered narcissist that we've ever seen in our time. I promise you, Lane Kiffin will be honored to win the Jabroni Award because somebody's talking about him, and that's what it's all about. But in a Vanity Fair magazine article, and we talked about this a little bit on last week's Starting Lineup, in a Vanity Fair article, Lane Kiffin said, well, it was really difficult at Ole Miss because I had to spend a lot of my time reassuring parents and grandparents that their black athletes would be comfortable and safe in Mississippi, in Oxford, Mississippi, not Jackson, which is a crime-riddled town where I'd have concerns of anybody being safe there. But now, then he went on to say, but in Baton Rouge, it's such a welcoming atmosphere. It's going to be great to be able to live above that specter of always having to to worry about racial situations. Tony, if you're in Oxford, Mississippi right now, if you're affiliated with Ole Miss, you are the school that gave Lane Kiffin his first major head coaching job. You're the one who took a chance on him. He had left Alabama's offensive coordinator. He didn't leave Alabama. Nick Saban fired him because he was already working on being the Florida Atlantic head coach, and Alabama still had some unfinished business, like trying to win a national championship. So Kiffin showed his true colors at the end of his Alabama stint by not even honoring his time with Saban. Went to Florida Atlantic, had some success with a bad program, but it was Ole Miss who stepped up and gave him that first opportunity to get back into head coaching after he jilted Tennessee. He completely fell on his face and failed with the Oakland Raiders, and then he was unceremoniously fired at USC on the tarmac of the airport when the jet came back from Arizona after getting clobbered by Arizona State. They didn't even let him get off the plane. Pat Hayden, the athletic director, boarded the plane and fired him. So this guy got a second chance from Ole Miss. He did a great job there. He built the program back up. But now, as he has pulled the ultimate betrayal last year of taking a team, Tony, that went to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I've got a better chance to win a national championship at LSU. He had a team that I said last year, there's no way he's going to leave, because if that's really his goal, he is right on the doorstep. And if a few plays go a little differently in the Miami game, it would have been Ole Miss lining up against Indiana in the national championship. But all that being said, because there's another big part of this, but this was kind of what started it all. To suggest that there's still rampant racism in Oxford, to a school that really gave you the opportunity to get back into prominence and be in position to get all these big jobs. And like a cheating husband, this guy dabbled. He said in that same article that he spent a lot of time trying to convince Florida and Alabama when they had openings to give him those jobs. So even though the school that he had gotten the chance from, he was still flirting with all these other schools, wanting to go somewhere more prominent. And now he uses the racism excuse, which I just find unconscionable.
Lane Kiffin is not going to be comfortable until he's back down, either way down in Florida somewhere where it's in Miami, where he's probably in a pro situation, or he's back on the West Coast, which I think he always wants to go back out there because he loves the culture and loves the aura. You know, when you have a team and you say, and this happens a lot at Auburn, was the coach a good fit? Was the coach a good fit? It's not whether he's good enough to be a coach. It's whether he's a good fit. Lane Kiffin has kind of taken that whole fit thing and turned it upside down and reversed it. Am I the right fit for your university? He thinks he's bigger than the university, and he thinks that the university has to conform to his ideas and cultures and ideologies in order to make the actual coach fit. I want to go back just a little bit. I think you bring up a great point. Was 5-15 with Oakland, 7-6 Tennessee, 28-15 USC, 26-13 at Florida Atlantic, 55-19 at Ole Miss, and now of course goes to LSU. And of course, in between had some situations going on with OCs and this, that, and the other. I quite frankly, and again, I know that Auburn wanted him so badly.
Yeah, I forgot. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. He had told Auburn he was going to take the job, and then supposedly his daughter talked him out of it because she loved it at Oxford, that racist community.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone, Terry Henley, all of our friends came on our show and said, I know exactly where he's going. And we welcomed him to Auburn. Next thing you know, he pulled the boat out. Next thing you know, they had to settle for Hugh Freeze, and we saw how that went down.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Yeah, I don't know if there is the perfect job for Lane Kiffin. I don't know if there is a gig out there that suffices to him and the way he believes that college. Again, to me, he's more of a professional kind of guy, whether he gets that pro job or not, because it's beyond him to have to deal with these kids. And now particularly with NIL and all the money that's out there, you're basically dealing with pros in the first place. But you go back and you look at your record and what's the big deal? I mean, at Ole Miss, he had 11 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins. The last 3 years, obviously, he had 32 wins. And so he's obviously had only 6 losses his last 3 years. But yeah, you can get it done at Ole Miss. So why in the world would he leave to go to LSU? The only thing I can think is the last three coaches outside Brian Kelly that coached at LSU won national titles. And I think a lot of people look at Les Miles. He won a national title. Ed Orgeron, he won a national title.
Buffoons.
If those two guys can win national titles, then why can't I? But if it's all just about winning a national title, Lane's got plenty of times left in his coffers to get that done. I don't think he's going to have to get that done down at LSU, and I don't think he's going to get it done at LSU. I think he's got a really good way of wearing people out. He can take his
he'll start flirting with somebody else right away.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's just who he is, because he's got to be the guy everybody's talking about.
But it ain't about the money. It ain't about the money. It's never
he's
been
got
about
more money than he can.
It's never been about the money. He's always had plenty of money.
And he even got his trophy wife.
Yeah.
Even came back when he started getting bigger contracts. So
he's always had enough money to get the latest, greatest Lululemon pants. He's not going to have to worry about whether he has enough money in the coffers.
Already reeling from all of that last week. Now we have elections, as you mentioned. We've got a raging controversy. The United States Supreme Court, about a month ago, heard a case, and here's a little irony for you, Tony. The case was brought by the state of Louisiana, challenging the Voting Rights Act that was passed by Congress back in the 1960s, which created districts that would lead to giant majorities of African-American citizens in those particular districts, and it would promote electing more African-American candidates to Congress. In theory, that was a good thing at that time, when certainly more representation and more respect for that segment of our population, which at that time was still only 11%. Mm-hmm. So if you go back and look at it logically, not with a racial spectacles, and I'm not saying it was the wrong thing to do at that time. It probably was very very laudable that they went that direction. But the problem is, now all these years later, the state of Louisiana finally challenged that action constitutionally, and the Supreme Court came back and said, well, you can't have districts drawn intentionally for any particular proclivity or group of people. And so they basically said the Voting Rights Act was improperly and nobody had ever challenged it in court before. And it was the state of Louisiana, that bastion and welcoming area of, that Lane Kiffin is now so proud to be a part of. I just find the irony hilarious on that. So, but here's the problem, and here's what's really got me steamed up today. I had read over the weekend on X, somebody had made this dramatic post about the South is reverting back to what it always has been, and it's just been pretending all these years. Now the South, all these southern states, are having legislative sessions to redraw districts and keep Black Americans from having any chance to be elected to Congress. And this is just Jim Crow number 2. Yeah. We're right back to the 1960s. And the suggestion at the end of that article was perhaps the thing that they love most in the South, college sports, needs to be make a statement, and people, recruits that are considering going to SEC or Southern schools should go to states and play and bring their talents to states that are not in this posture. Basically talking about blue states, the New Yorks, the Michigans, I can go through the list. And I just blew that off as some crackpot. Yesterday on the Paul Feinbaum show, I had it on. I had my headphones on. I was doing some work outside on a glorious sunny day, hot day, and I was listening to Paul Feinbaum. In the first 2 hours, he had 3 different callers, so this is not an accident. This is an organized thing now. This is a desperate move as states redraw districts, and these people were suggesting the same thing, that families and recruits should not go to Southern schools now to protest what's happening there. To me, here's the Paul Feinbaum show, the premier national call-in show, and he devotes so much time in those first 2 hours to this political issue, and it has nothing to do with college football or college sports. As you well know, college athletes are making their decisions now, not on cultural things, not on history of particular regions, not on how they vote. It's show me the money. It's the money, Tony. That's what they're making their decisions based on. And I don't think any 17 or 18-year-old kid who's grown up in this country is motivated by making college decisions. I don't like how Alabama's handling this, or Georgia's redrawing their districts or whatever. So I think I'm going to go freeze my ass off in Minnesota because they're more in line with what I believe philosophically. That's not what's going through an 18-year-old's mind.
Real interesting, though, that you brought up that, and I heard that part of the show yesterday as well. I wasn't outside. I was inside sitting on my big fat ass watching television, but I was also listening to the show. I listen every day. The fact that he gave a good hour and a half, 2 hours to that concept.
See, I think Paul's afraid of being
Paul's a lawyer.
racist.
Paul's a smart guy. Paul's a really, really smart guy.
Very.
Okay. And so there's a reason why he's doing this and using his format to further this cause. I don't know if that means that he has got perhaps a representative or perhaps someone that he's getting behind, a Democrat or a Republican that he's trying to help. I don't know. I have no idea. Perhaps someone chirped in his ear and said, hey, listen, you ought to talk more about this because I think it's really important to the culture and the ideologies of college football down the road. I'm not sure why he would give so much time and effort to something like that. Quite frankly, to the dismay of a lot of his listeners, because I think a lot of his listeners just want to hear each other shout at each other and give each other hell. And that's certainly now with about 100 days left for college football, certainly something that I don't think a lot of people have taken into account. Why do you think he went there?
I think he wants to make sure that, because, he was thinking about running for Senate and was, actually suggesting that he might leave the show about this time last year. And he identified himself as a Republican. But I think Paul's always been so aware of his image and making sure that he doesn't get labeled. So I think sometimes I was surprised when he identified himself as a Republican, because historically, I think he has kind of tried to act a little bit more liberal on his show. And I just think, Paul is smart enough and savvy enough to play all the bases. But, the whole thing is so frustrating to me because I know you well, and all the people that I am in my immediate circle, all my lifelong friends over in Atlanta, if there's two guys on the ballot, and one guy's a black guy and the other guy's a Caucasian guy or whatever other race it is, I don't care what they look like. Exactly. I am going to vote for the guy who's most qualified for the job, who's going to represent my interests the best in whatever position they're running for. I just think it's so insulting to everybody that, I always use the example when I watch the Olympics, and it's the 400-meter race, and they show the lineup, and the three guys from the United States that are in the finals are African-American black guys. Then they show a couple pasty Finns and a Russian, and maybe some guy from, I don't know, that's just found his way in there from Norway or something. And I don't go, okay, we got 6 white guys against 3 black guys. Come on, one of you guys, one of you honkies. I don't root for those guys. USA, baby. If you got USA on your chest, I don't care if you're pink with purple polka dots. I'm rooting for you. You're an American. I'm an American. And the same thing in elections. I want to vote for the most qualified person. I don't think this eliminates African-American candidates because they don't have a stacked district. You think about it constitutionally. I mean, if you've got any district that's absolutely a slam dunk for one particular kind of person, that's wrong.
Yep.
Congressional districts need to be drawn on geographic lines, not on these. I don't know if you ever saw the map. Virginia tried on the opposite side, Virginia's totally Democrat controlled right now. And that's a big point that I want to make here. And I'll stop talking. But Virginia redrew their congressional maps this year. They got thrown out by their own Supreme Court because of the fact that they didn't follow proper procedures. But this map, Tony, looked like 5 octopus on top of each other. They had these long, skinny lines that would extend from Southern Virginia all the way up to the border of Maryland. And they were drawn intentionally to get as many different kind of Democrat voters involved. And that's, at the end of the day, the main point I want to make. This has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with black and white. This is Democrat against Republican, because right now, with these traditionally historic, let's call them what they are, African-American dominated districts, it's almost a slam dunk automatic seat for the Democrats. And they're panicking now, and they're trying to drag sports into the equation in a desperate attempt to try and to have backlash against these states that are redrawing these things the way that they constitutionally were intended to be. This has nothing to do with black and white. This is Democrat, Republican. This is simple politics. It's nasty. It's ridiculous, and leave my sports out of it.
Amen. And I can stop right there. I think that's a beautiful ending to a wonderful story and a great plot line. Leave my sports out of it. I just got a chance to go speak at something called Top Soccer for special needs kids at Liberty Park last week. I was with the mayor of Vestavia Hills, and he's just a wonderful guy, Mayor Ashley Curry. And we were talking about, where does that line between Hoover and Vestavia Hills match up? And you want to talk about a strange Virginia line. Vestavia Hills is like this long, thin
line. The
town
of Hoover is insane.
It looks like the Gaza Strip. I mean, it's funky. It's weird. I don't know where that was written up or how that was written up or how Hoover annexed enough land to make sure they had that outside piece. But Vestavia Hills speaks for itself. It does extremely well.
And to your point, I was at that A.G. Gaston dinner last week at Ross Bridge, which is fabulous, by the way. Folks should spend more time out there.
I'm out there every day. I'm out there.
Brand new area. It's just great. And to think that Ross Bridge is officially in Hoover, as is Greystone, where they played the tradition last week. Those are like 20 miles apart.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. They're like I think he said that from one end to the other, it's like 32 miles or something for Hoover, which is insane. All right. Starting lineup again this weekend. We will be right around 100 days from college football. I can't wait to do the show with you. 10:30, 11 o'clock on ABC 3340. We got the legend.
Don't forget the Jabroni Awards coming up.
The Jabroni Awards coming up.
A lot of fun this week.
We'll do Kid Perspective. We'll do the legend. We'll do some bone fragments. It's all going to be coming up this weekend on ABC 3340. I know you're heading down to the beach for a few days. Please be careful down there, and we will check you out on television coming up this weekend, my friend. I look forward to it, and thanks again for all your time.
Hey, Tony, thank you.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.